We're 2 minutes late. We were
I was reading in a book.
We were reading an excerpt. We've selected an excerpt from a book to read to you guys. The lighting is terrible. I have shadows over my eyes. We forgot to turn on the light. Okay, what's on the menu for tonight?
Apparently books.
Books. A couple of announcements. I'm going to be at the Sacramento Horse Expo the second weekend in June. So June 10th and 11th. It's going to be very exciting. Stefan Peters is going to be there. Warwick Scholler is going to be there. I'm going to be doing some demos. And we have some...
You're doing them?
No, I'm going to be teaching. We have 4 demo riders that are going to be there. And I'll be doing some different lectures. Like I think one's on suppleness, one's on half halts, one on flying changes. So it will be an experience. I've never done like a big demonstration like that. I hope to see some of you there. The other thing is I have an awesome new PDF for you to download, which is all about planning your ride with the training scale. So I will put the link in the chat for you to download. What's your opinion of the training scale, honey?
What do you mean? It's useful. It's like, what would you do? It's like the roadmap. It's how you get things done. It's how you get from point A to point B. You got to have a plan.
Exactly. So people are always asking me, like, how do you plan your ride? How do you know what to work on? What do you do if you have a problem? I think about the training scale. It's like something that I always have in the back of my mind with every single horse I ride, every single lesson I teach, everything. And you need to like be able to recite the levels of the training scale from the bottom to the top without hesitation. Do you agree?
If I could remember it.
You don't remember the levels of the training scale?
They've changed it.
They've changed it. They have changed it.
They've reduced phrases down to one word, and it used to be like rhythm and regularity. And now it just says rhythm because you can't have regularity if you don't have rhythm. So they've condensed it down to...
Yes. So basically, if you can't recite the levels of the training scale, download the PDF. If you're having a problem with your horse, download the PDF. If you ride around and you don't know what to work on, you need to be thinking about the training scale because it's like the secret to life. So it's there for you. It's free. We worked really hard on putting it together. And what else? Do you want to read them your excerpt from your book and show us what book it is? Tell us what book it is. You have to tell him.
It's James Phillips.
What's the title of the book?
Breaking and Riding.
Breaking and Riding. But he's only on page 16.
Yeah.
But it is really useful to read literature about riding and about training. I think you learn a lot from it.
Okay, so this is going to be 3 paragraphs. It's quite long. The excessive use of the stirrups has other faults. I am of the opinion that the great majority of dangerous falls are caused by their abuse. For example, Mr. X is run away with by his horse in the forest of Saint Germain. He sits well down into the saddle, succeeds in stopping the animal, and starts into a trot on his stirrups. Unfortunately, a stirrup leather breaks at this moment, and Mr. X falls on his head and is killed. Every horseman knows that the breaking of a stirrup leather can cause a rider to fall on his head, only because the man had put all his weight on the stirrups and was consequently more or less out of the saddle. If he was not bearing his weight on the stirrups, he might, no doubt, roll off, but the severity of the fall would be more or less broken by the fact that the knees would be gripping the flaps of the saddle. I would go further and say that if a rider did not depend on his stirrups, he would hardly ever fall off on account of a stirrup leather breaking.
Okay, but how often do stirrup leathers break?
Yours
well,
broke
I had one break the
2
other
weeks
day.
ago.
I had a stirrup leather break 2 weeks ago. So one thing is that you should check your stirrup leathers and make sure that like the rivets are good at the top. Make sure that you buy good stirrup leathers. Like a lot of the stirrup leathers now have like fabric inside of them
Yeah.
so that they don't break, like so that the leather doesn't just like
Right, because
stretch
leather's
and
going to age and crack.
yeah.
And I remember I had a trainer once who saw the stitching in my leather and just ripped my stirrup leather because there was only like 4 stitches left in it. And she's like, "This is terrible," and just ripped
Yeah.
it and said, "Go fix this." And that was the end of that stirrup leather.
Yes. So you do want to check your tack. You want to check your stirrup leathers. You want to check your girth. That's another thing. You want to check like your reins, because all of that stuff can age and not last. And it's also good not to buy the cheapest equipment possible, because lots of times cheap equipment breaks. And yes, when you're riding, you should have how much weight in your stirrups? Like 20% of your weight in your stirrups. But you shouldn't be like bracing on your stirrups.
Right, which we'll skip the second example then and just move to that paragraph. Would
Yes.
you rather do that?
Yes.
Okay. So, standing on the stirrups is like standing on a springboard, in which case, if any violent movement is produced by the horse, the rider is liable to be shot forward as if from a catapult and always onto his head. Even when the horse plunges forward, the rider will rarely be unseated if he is sitting well into the saddle with his weight resting on his seat. So
that's funny. That is very well written. Like I have a very clear picture of being catapulted out of the saddle because I'm like have all my weight in my stirrups.
And I'm pretty sure.
But the moral of the story is you have to work on developing an independent seat, and you shouldn't rely on like jamming and pushing all the weight into your stirrups, because
You'll end up hovering above the saddle. You never get down in it. It's
and
like
you're braced. You can't follow.
You're not pliable. You will be stiff.
Yeah, you can't follow the motion of your horse. So that's why it's important.
So that was what that's I'm working my through this book again, and there's some really fabulous stuff about corrections to be made, and how to treat a horse.
Yeah, looks like a good book. It looks very dense.
It's
Okay.
light reading.
Oh yeah, someone wants to know what happened to your finger. Did you fracture? Did you break your finger? What happened to your finger?
I didn't identify with the tip. I had it removed.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said
Did
that.
I say that? Or say no? That's I stuck it inside of the fan on a blower, and I took off the tip. So they've put they sewed the tip back on about 2 weeks ago, and I'm good to go.
Oh, good. Someone in Facebook says, I tend to press into my stirrups when I get tense. Any pointers on how to get over that?
You could always take your stirrups away.
Safety first.
Right.
I would say breathe and remember that illustrative sentence that Germán just read about how bracing in your stirrups can cause you to catapult out off of your horse.
Okay, so the thing about the stirrups is really quite difficult, right? Because you spend your day standing on your feet. So the pathways from your brain to your feet are really, really well formed. So in any time that there's a thing that happens, our brain goes, oh my God, I got to stand up, and you go to your feet. If you don't have your stirrups, then necessity being the mother of invention, you will develop a seat because you have to.
Right. Which is why riding without stirrups is good exercise.
Now, maybe not at the moment of tension. So before you ride, I make my students walk without their stirrups, do suppling exercises for the horse, and the rider doesn't have their stirrups, just to wake up the nerve endings in your butt and in your thighs, and to get a different sensation, so that you're getting input from different sensory instead of your feet, because your brain to your feet, that is really, really well formed. And the only time you're going to be taking in information from your seat is when you're in the saddle. So if you take the stirrups away, you will feel something different. And so you do that at the walk, you feel more comfortable, you do it at the trot. I mean, I know I got lunged without stirrups and without reins. And that's how my trainer developed my seat.
You can also really think about, like, when you get nervous or tense, pushing your seat into the saddle, like sitting back, consciously telling yourself to like connect through your seat, because when you brace in your stirrups, that lifts you off of the horse, which is really
And
what you
so
don't want to happen.
we won't show that finger then. So you're sitting down, right? If the horse goes anywhere, you're sitting down. If you stand in the stirrups and the horse goes,
You're coming off.
you're coming off.
Okay, there's some other good questions here. I'm working on more jump in the canter. Do you have any tips?
Cavalettes, ground poles.
I would say lots of transitions too, like walk canter. Those are
Yeah.
my favorite to get more jump in the canter, and really focus on the first stride of canter, that the first, like that you go from walk, and when you ask for canter, that your horse gets like really like jumpy, active canter. That's what I did a lot with Kensington, because when I got Kensington, his canter was like really slow and big. And Hinneman had me do about 1 million like walk canter, walk canter, walk canter. And that really helped. Okay. Oh yeah. Someone, I can't see your names, I'm sorry, but I watched your video about developing expression in the trot. That was this week's YouTube video. How do you know when your horse is ready to begin working on it? And is it months or year process? How much should you work on it? It looks very physically demanding. Yes, all of those things.
Experience counts. I mean, that's the trick of this thing is, you develop feel and you say, hey, the horse feels balanced and I can feel the power and the horse is here. And then you do it. There's no substitute for experience. You just got to try it.
Yeah. But I always think that it's important to do, like when you're developing that bigger trot, to do short segments of it. So like at first you only get 1 or 2 steps, and then you walk and you pet your horse. And then the next time you ask for 3 or 4 steps, and then you walk and you pet your horse, because it's definitely one of those things that the horse has to figure out what you want. And also they have to develop the strength for it. And then, like Germán said, it's about balance. So you can only get expression when your horse is engaged behind and through and supple in the top line. So you have to spend a lot of time working on those basics before you work on the expression. And it takes
you really
years.
Want to reward the horse's try, right? If the horse tries, you reward that. It'll turn into, as he learns, he'll do it. But you got to reward the try.
Yeah. And it takes years. Like, for example, with Kensington, he has a good trot. But for the past, I would say, year and a half, I've been working a lot on the half steps on the piaffe with him. And just like in the last few months, like you saw it today, he's starting to get like a lot of expression in his trot.
A lot of loft and lift in there.
Yeah.
A lot of power.
But it's taken, basically, I built him up by getting the canter better, like really getting the canter quicker and more collected, working on the half steps. And then now it's like coming the expression into the trot. But it's been like, it's a several year process for sure. It doesn't just happen overnight.
It's not weeks.
Okay, here's a question from Dreamer on YouTube. I own an Arabian and he's very spooky. He spooks at everything. Do you have any tips on how to help?
Well, it's all the stuff that we always, it's the groundwork. It's familiarizing him. It's not over facing him. You want to do things where he's looking to you for guidance and build on that. Start small and reward every little thing where he comes to you.
And I think also getting them on the 8s, because like you have to teach your horse that your inside leg and like your inside bend and having them focus on the inside of the arena, that's more important than everything else around. Because some horses, like if you just let them wander around with their head up and look at everything, they're going to spook at everything. But if you put them to work and you bend them to the inside and you put them in shoulder in and you give them a job to do, they get security and confidence through knowing like, okay, I don't need to worry about everything else because my rider is on my back.
Yeah.
But that takes time and like a lot. I always do a lot of groundwork, a lot of bending on the ground, teaching them turn on the forehand.
Right, and that's going to take longer with an Arab than a quarter horse, say.
Yeah.
You mean because they're going to go to the, I mean, everything goes to the bloodline.
But Arabians are really smart.
Real smart.
I had an Arabian that I trained up to the I2, and he was so smart. The other thing about Arabs is they always want to put their head up. So doing a lot of like pull release, getting them to put their head down on the ground, that will help you when you ride because you need to be able to put their head down and get them relaxed. Okay, another question. I struggle with knowing when my trot tempo is correct, not lazy, and not rushing.
That's my favorite story.
What's that?
I was on cue and I was trotting around and I was like, wow, this feels great. I'm really happy. I'm like, this is the greatest trot. This is awesome. I'm going to win the gold medal. And Amelia's taking the horse out to the turnout. She yells from the other side of the parking lot, why do you let him trot like that? Because obviously it did not look nearly as good as I thought it felt. So, yeah, welcome to horseback riding.
Is that why you don't ever let me help you anymore? did I crush you that day? Okay, the thing with tempo, trot tempo, is that you need to feel like you have control of your tempo, like you could make it quicker or you could make it slower. And you also need to feel like you could make a transition out of that tempo. Like,
right. The trots, if you could say canter and the horse canters, your trot's okay. If you can't get to the canter, the trot's not okay.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to ask this question about the training scale and remind all of you to download the free PDF. I'll put the link in the chat again. The training scale. This is a question from Brooke. Should I make sure I have rhythm and suppleness before I start scrambling eggs? My horse can be very braced at times. I don't know if I should just start counting out loud, become a human metronome like I have been, creating rhythm and tempo to help us get organized, and then focus on getting her round by scrambling eggs, or try to get her round while I'm finding the rhythm. That's a good question.
I think you do the rhythm first, establish that, and then start suppling.
I'll put the link to download our training scale PDF in the chat.
But and even as I say that, it's like
it's all related.
It's almost simultaneous, right? Because you can't really push on a tense horse. So if the horse's neck is this braced, brittle thing, they're not going to want to go either. So
the way that the training scale works is that in general, you start at the bottom and you work your way up to the top. But that said, all the levels are kind of interrelated, and it's not like you have to master one level before moving on to the next. So the levels of the training scale are rhythm, suppleness, connection, impulsion, straightness, and collection. So most of your time is always spent at the bottom. When I get on a horse, I always start by thinking about the rhythm and the suppleness. But those bottom three levels, like rhythm, suppleness, and connection, are all related. But if you have to compromise one thing, like if you're having trouble just getting your horse moving forward, then yes, you have to focus on the rhythm first, like getting the rhythm, getting the tempo, getting your horse moving, then start working on the suppleness and the connection.
yeah, and if it's not moving at all, a turn on the forehand would be good. And that's like scrambling the egg. And there you're starting to get some suppleness. And then it can go forward. I just think about the young horses that, when you turn on the forehand and you get them all lovey-dovey and then go.
Yeah. But it's like the training scale is a general guide that you want to use. And a lot of people make the mistake of just focusing too much on the top of the training scale, like just working on straightness and collection. And that makes for very unhappy and stiff horses. So it is something that you always want to have in mind, and then just kind of like play around with it, like start scrambling the eggs, asking your horse to get a little rounder, but then you have to check back in with your rhythm and tempo and make sure that your horse hasn't slowed down. So that's like your priority list, but you've got to be focusing on all three of those things, because if you're not, getting your horse round, then you're also not having your horse supple or in the correct rhythm. Okay. Let's see. Here's a question from Patty, how do you deal with a horse who has a great walk until I pick up the reins and then he gets lateral or stilted?
Lots of curved lines.
Curved lines, leg yields, all that stuff.
Circles, curved line, just curved line and curved line. Yeah, leg yield on the curved line. And because you got to break the timing. So that's pretty much it. Don't write any more straight lines until you get to the show.
Okay, here's another question. I think this is maybe from someone who's in our rider position challenge. She still has trouble keeping her legs steady in the canter. How do you keep your legs from swinging back and forth in the canter? What's your advice?
I think I've got just that gentle hug with my calf that keeps my leg, and I make sure my hips move because
Yeah.
something has to follow the rhythm of something has to follow the movement. So if your hips aren't going, your hands will go. I mean, because energy is like a river, right? You're not going to stop the water. You got to work with that. So some part of you has got to move, and it's got to be your hips.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes if your legs are swinging, it's because
Your hips are inflexible.
Yeah, your seat isn't connected enough. And some of it too is just like an awareness and breaking of a habit is like feeling the horse underneath of your calf. And if it's sliding back and forth, then you've got to quit that. But it's also, we get into bad habits when we ride. Like this morning, Germán was teaching me with Kensington, and Kensington, he always kind of has really leaned to the right. When I got him, he was like really stiff to the right. So I've developed this bad habit of riding with my right leg back all the time to keep him from falling in. And he kept yelling at me today, why is your right leg so far back? Like, what is it doing back there? It should be at the girth.
You're in right lead canter. I really hope I hope your left leg is behind your right one.
Yes.
That's what I was saying a lot.
But sometimes that's what happens in riding is that your proprioception gets messed up.
And the horses are better at training us than we are them.
Yeah. So, right. So the horses get you compensating, get you doing things to, to help them. And that's where video is really helpful, or having a lesson or an instructor or seeing photos of yourself riding. All of those things will help to recalibrate your proprioception and fix your problems, basically. Oh yeah, I wanted to share. So for those of you guys in the 30-day rider position challenge, one thing that's really fun that we've been doing is everyone's been using #progress to share their progress over the last 30 days. So if you're here and you want to share your progress, something that's improved, go ahead and let us know in the chat. What have you improved? In the month of May, what have you improved?
I haven't given it a thought, really. I know I've improved my horse's relaxation.
Well, there you go. I got to ride Frankie this week. That was fun.
I've got her carrying more weight behind, and she's a bit more relaxed. I don't hear her grinding away so much in the trot.
That's good.
Yeah.
Relaxation is important because if your horse isn't relaxed, they can't really think and you can't really train them. So what's my progress for this month? I think Kensington is he's really in the last month, he's gotten so much more expression and strength behind. And that's kind of how it is in riding. You plateau, or sometimes you even get worse, and that's very depressing. And then all of a sudden things kind of come together and you get a lot better. So, oh yeah, here someone says she was trying to video herself, but didn't realize the wind blew over the camera. So no proof. My awareness of the glute med and how important it was. Yes, the glute med is like the best muscle ever for riding.
Right. And I hadn't heard of it until you and Stephanie started talking about it. And I think Kathy was asking me about, the muscles to get to the canter. And I was like, well, the horse canters and they move you, you'll know. And then I told her to go look at your stuff because there's a real good explanation in there.
And did she?
I don't know yet. I haven't seen her. She has to go take care of her nephew.
Oh.
She'll be back next week.
Okay. Okay, here's a question. Do you have any tips on cantering for the first time after a bad fall and you're nervous? Sit back, breathe, keep your butt in the saddle.
But yeah, grin and bear it. It wasn't cantering. Although I took my horse flipped over once and hit my head. There was like 3 days where I was uncomfortable about doing anything. I was like, wow, this is nuts. And it went away after 3 days. But I remember I had gotten into a motorcycle accident and I'd fractured my skull. And when I was ambulatory again, somebody lent me a motorcycle, and I remember putting my leg over it and breaking out into just a sweat, and my heart rate and everything was, and I just rode the bike until it went away. That's.
Yeah, but it's also important to just take the time, like getting your confidence up, like work on the trot, work on trotting really fast, work on, like
Right.
break it down, have someone lunge
you make
you.
the canter transition easy. You're on a circle, you trot, walk. You walk 4 steps, you trot. You trot a half a circle, you walk 4 steps, you trot. You get the horse all dialed in, you trot, walk, you trot, walk, you trot, walk, you trot, canter.
Yeah. And then I definitely think though with horses, because they're prey animals, the second that you get tense and nervous, things are not going to go well.
Right, because
they sense it. Like they can sense it so much better than we can. If you're nervous, your horse knows it. Like there's no way they don't.
It's not so much that they think, oh my God, you're nervous. They feel that and they think something's coming. And so because you're nervous, they go, I haven't seen it, but I believe you and I trust you. And I know the way to safety is about 35 miles an hour in that direction.
Yeah.
So they believe you. You act scared and they think something scary's coming. We should run away. And that's why it's so important to keep your emotions under control. And so how do you do that? I breathe. I'm a big believer in the breathing.
Okay, this week he was demonstrating for one of the clients like how she should breathe, and it was hilarious. I could hear you like from the other side of the arena.
Her horse is going more forward now.
Okay, show us how do you breathe to get your horse going more forward?
Oh, no. Don't make me do that. Let's not embarrass Germán on TV hour, is it?
Everyone's laughing. Look, we get all these nice compliments. They're laughing a lot.
So, man,
no cussing.
I was about to. I was so about to. That's me. Normally I cuss a lot. So the horse goes kind of slow. Okay. I'm just going to pretend there's nobody here. The horse goes slow, and you have to get electric, right? To get that horse moving. And so I got on the horse. My legs were loose. My reins were loose. And I just started moving like this and breathing like this and going, and quick. And the horse started going, and boom, off he went. And she was like, oh my God. So I get like hysterical. I get hysterical with my breathing, like boiling water. I get hysterical and my whole body starts vibrating. And I'm going like, and the horse is going, geez. And poof, off he went to the trot. Okay, so there you go.
So if you don't want your horse to go running off, don't breathe like that.
Right.
But if you do,
once you get the horse up to that level, then you need to back it down.
But that is like very.
But you get electric and you breathe.
Yeah. So horses are very much in tune with your body language, and so like your energy level. We all have different energy levels. Like some of us are very chill and like just relaxed. Others of us are wound pretty tight. And
then there's those of us that are schizophrenic, which just makes it so much easier.
But you'd be amazed. There's some people that sit on a horse and they light the horse up. Like their butt hits the saddle and the horse is like on and like eyes bugged out of their head. Other people get on the horse and the horse is just like asleep. Have you ever noticed that about some people?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And well, you and I are different that way too. I chill them out more and you heat them up more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
But
just our personality.
But I think that's the art of being a good horseman, is being able to adjust your energy level based on what the horse needs.
Yeah.
The other thing about breathing is you did a lot of martial arts. And so that's kind of where it comes from, right?
Yeah. Well,
like if you're going to kick or if you're going to throw a punch.
Right. You have to do that in sync with your breathing. And then we trained a lot of that. Not only that, when they hit you, you have to pretend it didn't hurt. You got to breathe through getting kicked in the face. So there's that part too.
But like any time that you're going to do a transition, you basically like inhale, exhale,
right. Exactly.
Right.
And that's exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's exactly the same. So that you're soft and then the A and the horse goes off. Then that's the same as kicking and punching. It's all relaxed and smooth, and then boom, and the horse off he goes.
Yes.
For sure. That's exactly the same.
We'll have to do a YouTube video on your breathing techniques.
Okay.
All right, everyone.
Okay.
We're going to continue with our evening. I hope you enjoyed tonight's entertainment. Care of Germán. He's going diving tomorrow. He went diving with his broken finger sliced open.
My finger's not broken.
I caught a halibut with a broken finger.
Yes, and I made my own coleslaw and tartar sauce.
Oh yeah,
and breaded it.
That was delicious.
So
if any of you guys ever are in town, he makes the best halibut ever. So you'll have to come over.
And my finger's not broken. I just lopped off the top above the bone. Well, a quarter of it. And then they took the other part and they sewed it down, and it's fine. I took a day off and been riding ever since, so no big deal.
All right. Thank you guys, and congratulations. I've been reading in the chat, all of you guys with your progress in the 30-day to round challenge. It's going to be over soon. It's almost the end of the month. So yeah, the challenge is almost over. We hope that you'll continue with us in strides, and have a good rest of your evening. Good night, everyone.